Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and can I thank my friend Steve Irons for bringing this motion before the House. The apology to the forgotten Australians 5 years ago was a very important moment in Australia's history. Finally, after so long, Australia opened its eyes and opened its arms to 500,000 Australians who'd been ignored, neglected, let down and too often terribly abused. Perhaps most hurtful of all, for so long they weren't believed. These are 500,000 Australians who grew up in orphanages, in children's homes and other institutions in the 20th century. They were supposed to be places where people were looked after, but that wasn't the case. Slowly, over the last few decades, the truth has emerged. Stories that would make you shudder. Terrifying violence, awful depravity, extraordinary brutality. This is just one. This is Mark, who grew up in a boys' home in Toowoomba. Evidence he's given is this. Oddly enough, in a place so full of brutality, sexual abuse didn't rank as high as other forms of abuse, such as mental and emotional torture, lack of adequate clothing, shortage of food and strings of punishment that never seemed to end. That sexual abuse was the least of our worries should tell you how bad things really were. That's Mark. All of this for too long was a secret. Anyone who went to the police wasn't believed. They were told that they were a bloody liar and they were told to go away. And this is why the apology 5 years ago was important. Finally, some recognition that what happened to these young people was real, that it happened, and that's important in and of itself. My strongest memory of the day is a woman who came up to me and thanked me for helping to organise the apology. She told me that she'd been married to the same man for 30 years, but she'd only told him that she grew up in an orphanage a couple of days ago when she heard of the apology. And she told me that ever since, the nightmares had stopped. In the 7 years that I've had the privilege of being a member of this place, this is the most important thing that I've done. The work that I did with Steve Irons and my friend Richard Marles to urge our parties to come together to make that day happen. And the work we did with the incredible Jenny Macklin, and the work we've done with the unbelievable Leonie Sheedy, Joanna Penglaze and the whole team at Clan. The apology wouldn't have happened without them. 5 years on, that apology is still important, but it's not enough. There's more we have to do. There are still forgotten Australians who need help that aren't getting it. There are still forgotten Australians that may never get the justice they deserve in court against the criminals who did them so much harm unless changes are made to the law. And there are still thousands and thousands of forgotten Australians still waiting for the financial compensation they deserve from the institutions that did them so much harm. My hope is that the Royal Commission will fix this. Set up by Julia Gillard, headed by Justice McClellan, it's already gathered enough evidence to justify a public inquiry into more than 1,000 different institutions. In January, the Royal Commission will release a discussion paper about compensation or redress, and in June it will release its recommendations. And those recommendations will be very important to many people. One of those people is Frances. Frances is going to see the Royal Commission in January, and she's going to tell them what happened to her when she was a little girl. The neglect she suffered, best typified by a visit to the doctor years after she left the orphanage. And the doctor asked her, "Didn't you have milk or cheese as a child?" And she said no. She didn't even know what cheese was when she was a child. The abuse, being forced to sleep on a wet mattress, the beltings, the bruising, the caning, the blood all over her dress, and worse. Next month, Frances turns 93. Time hasn't erased those terrible memories, and tears still well in her eyes as she remembers them. Frances deserved that apology 5 years ago, and she deserves justice and redress now. And so do the thousands and thousands of other forgotten Australians. They deserved it a long time ago.